Hello and welcome to this evening's edition of Crowdfunding for Artists. Tonight we are going to be looking at performing arts and music specifically, but really important just to say to everyone joining us this evening that a lot of the advice that we'll be giving will be relevant for all sorts of projects, not just artists, not just performing artists, but anyone who's actually looking to crowdfund. So my name's Sammy Morger. I'm here in the Crowdfunder HQ down in Newquay, and what we're going to do this evening is go through a little bit of the basics of what crowdfunding is all about, what it is, how it works, go through best practice, tips for success, how to make sure that you give yourselves the best chance possible of raising the money that you need, and also going to talk a little bit about the extra funding that we have available for artists as well this evening. So what I'm going to do is just flip on over now to a presentation that we're just going to go through now. So hopefully everyone can see that. So just a little bit first of all about us here at Crowdfunder. We're based down in the UK, as I say. We're the largest rewards-based crowdfunding platform in the UK. Since our conception around about 4 or 5 years ago now, we've been growing and growing. And we're now looking at getting around about 100 projects a day that are crowdfunding with us, which is really fantastic. So different types of crowdfunding. This is often where people can sometimes get a bit confused when it comes to crowdfunding, because there are a few different ways that it can work. Now, the first one there on the left, donation, that's where you give money towards an idea and you don't get anything back. It's a straight donation. It's the kind of thing that a lot of charities do. If you've got any friends who are doing bike rides to Paris or running any marathons, that's the kind of crowdfunding often that they'll be doing. Rewards is where we really sit. That's really what our speciality is here at Crowdfunder. The way that rewards works is, again, you give a little bit of money, but instead of just giving it and getting nothing back, it's actually a two-way exchange. So you do get something back in return for that money, for that pledge. And we'll go through a bit of an example so you understand what a reward is. Community shares and equity, which you can see on there, work very similarly, whereby you're actually giving away a share in your business, or for community shares, it's actually a share in a community asset. So you're actually giving away a bit of your company, and those people are therefore part owners of your company, of your business, or your CIC, for example. Lending is kind of peer-to-peer, as you may have sort of heard. The way that works, people can, again, contribute money towards the thing that you're trying to achieve, but you do have to pay it back. There's obviously, set interest and things like that will be involved, but essentially the money isn't yours to keep forever. It is just borrowing money from people instead of perhaps from a bank. Now, obviously, going back to rewards, in rewards, you're not giving away any shares, you're not giving away any equity, any portions of your company, of the thing that you own. You don't have to pay the money back, so it doesn't work like lending. It's yours to keep. It's just that simple two-way exchange of a reward in return for that fund. So let's go through a bit of an example, so this hopefully makes a bit of sense what I'm talking about with rewards-based crowdfunding. So we have Phil there on the left, who wanted to raise £8,000 for his bakery up in Leeds. So he needed this money in order to buy the equipment, the ovens, the things that he needed to get his business off the ground. So he went to the banks. They weren't able to lend to him at that time. He didn't have any inheritance or rich grandparents, anything like that to kind of help him out and loan him the money. So he decided to crowdfund it instead, and to crowdfund through rewards. So he went onto the Crowdfunder website, set himself up a profile and a project, and in 49 days, he raised £8,690 from 144 different people. So what were these people getting in return for their money? Well, they were getting things like bread, things like a bakery class, things like cakes, products essentially. So for example, you might have got one loaf of bread every week for a year, or you might have got a special celebration cake at some point that you could redeem with Phil. So it was all the kind of things that would actually bring people closer to his idea, to what he was doing anyway. So it all kind of worked out nicely. He gets his ovens, his equipment, and his supporters get their bread. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense as to how rewards crowdfunding works there. So why do people bother doing this? Now, obviously, funding, that's the one we know, that one's in the title. But for a lot of projects, actually the funding isn't their main reason for choosing to go down the crowdfunding route. For Phil, actually, validation was a really, really key one. He wanted to find out, do people actually want a bakery in this neighborhood where I am? Is this something that there's actually a need for? So before he goes, to all the trouble of investing all this money and taking that risk, by crowdfunding, you actually put an idea out there into that community, and if they think it's a good idea, if it's something that they want to support, they want to happen, they will support it. So it's a really fantastic way of finding out if people are actually interested in what it is that you're trying to do in your idea. It's really actually fantastic in raising awareness, in marketing, in raising your profile, whether that's as an individual, as an organization, as a company. Just by going through the process of crowdfunding, you'll find it's essentially a really intensive period of marketing, of doing that promotional work and doing those comms around what it is that you're doing. So for the vast majority of projects, if not all projects, by the time they come out the other side of a successful crowdfund, they've connected with more customers, with more fans, a wider audience base, and they're just that much more well-known, more recognisable. It also has the fantastic job of actually turning your existing supporters or customers into advocates. We find that when people put their own money towards making an idea happen, they therefore feel a little bit invested in making sure that actually it is a success. So those people that supported Phil at the start by putting money towards his bakery crowdfund, they're the kinds of people who are telling their neighbours, their colleagues, their best friends about this fantastic bakery that was set up because they helped to make it happen. So I mentioned earlier that we're going to be talking a little bit about the extra funding that we have available. So we've got a new campaign that we launched in the autumn here on Crowdfunder, where we're got a little bit of extra funding to support individual artists. Now, this funding is specifically for individual artists in England. It's for artists who are crowdfunding on Crowdfunder and looking to raise between £4,000 and £40,000. Now, I can go into a little bit more detail on how that funding works and what we're looking for in order for you to receive some of that funding. So we're just going to continue on with crowdfunding for the moment and come back around and talk a little bit more about that extra funding a little bit later on. So we've broken down the stages of getting into a crowdfunding project into these three main steps. First step, of course, is planning your project. As with anything that we take on in life, a little bit of planning up ahead and right at the start will mean a much, much smoother road before you actually launch. We actually say here at Crowdfunder that around about 90% of the work that goes into a successful crowdfund happens before it even goes live. So first thing we need to do, of course, is build your team. So obviously, I'm guessing you here watching this evening will be the project owner, the person who's holding the reins, cracking the whip, making sure that everything's moving as it should be. But you definitely want to try and avoid going it alone. Recruit some people in to help you. Figure out what your skills are and perhaps where there's any gaps. Do you need to recruit someone in to help writing the copy, the wording for your page? Do you need someone to help shoot the video? What about social media? Have you got someone who's great on Twitter, someone who knows a bit about Instagram? It's kind of figuring out what are the things you need to do and who are going to be the best people to help you to do that. Next part is going to be identifying your crowd. That's figuring out who are going to be the people who actually back my project. Final part is growing that crowd. Once we've figured out who they are, right in this planning stage, we spend a bit of time on trying to nurture the people that we already have those connections with, and trying to make new connections, trying to figure out how we can make that potential crowd, that audience, a little bit bigger. Okay, so this page here is a bit of a template for what I like to call a network map. Now, you'll find this on page 9 of the Crowdfunding for Artists funding pack. You can download that from crowdfunder.co.uk/artists. If you scroll down, you'll see it there, it's downloadable. It's a PDF, you can get that straight onto your computer. So this is a little bit of as I say, a bit of a template just to get you started in thinking about who the different people might be that might want to back your project. Now, for you, it might be that some of the groups that we've highlighted here will be less relevant. It might be that some are really relevant and they're really kind of the key ones for you. And it might be, of course, that you're going to have other bubbles, other groups that are kind of right for you and for your project. But this is just a way to kind of get you started. So if we look at one of those branches there. So we've got, for example, friends and family. Really good place to start. I say always start with the Christmas card list. Start with those people that you know best, and work your way out from there. So right into the core, those people who you know you can rely on for a little bit of support and to lend a hand. So you can even be as specific as writing names, you know, mum, dad, brother, sister. You can even be, you know, kind of group them together and say, you know, cousins, you know, siblings, parents, you know, friends from university, friends from, you know, my last job, friends from, you know, my yoga class, you know, whatever that might be. And really sort of map down actually who is it that you know, who are these people that you would call, you know, within your network. Really, really useful exercise, actually. The vast majority of projects that I work with, they say this is one of the most useful and insightful things that they do right in the early stages. So a bit of a case study here now. I'm going to look at Wash Club, which is a film project which ran earlier on this year, just to see what they did when they were growing their crowd. So they mapped out who it was going to be that they thought was going to support them. And in the run-up to going live, as you can see here, we've got some screen grabs from Twitter and from Facebook. They were really good at getting people warmed up to the fact that they were launching. That's definitely the best way to go about it with crowdfunding. Instead of just putting something live and kind of starting from there, we want people to be ready and excited that your project is coming. If you can see there, the Facebook one on the left, it's talking about, you know, Tuesday, April 12th is a big day. And they've just got a little teaser video, just a 6-second video, you know, keep your eyes peeled recruits. It's really just getting people interested, getting them excited. And they were really good at using, you know, that they've got that hashtag, you are not your laundry. They've got that kind of Wash Club logo in the circle that they use right the way through. So they really built a narrative and a story around the fact that they're crowdfunding. So moving on to step 2, creating your project. This is where we get down to the nitty gritty. This is where we actually start clicking mouses and tapping away on keyboards. First thing to do, of course, creating your project is to go onto the Crowdfunder website and click Start Crowdfunding right there at the top. I'd recommend to everyone watching this evening, do that as soon as we finish tonight. Do that, that's the first thing. Everything that you do on there is editable, changeable. You can make it better, improve it later. You can just put, you know, placeholders in there. You can type gobbledygook, but just get yourself familiar with what it is that you've got to do. What's the task at hand? What are the stages you're going to have to go through? What information do you have to fill out? So first thing to think about is your target. That's really, really key in making sure that we've got that right, obviously right from the start at the point of going live. So we'll come on to that in a little bit more in just a moment. And then on the page, we have the 3 key elements. It's a video, a description, a story, and we have some rewards there. So thinking about that target, first of all, It's a little bit of a balance between how much money you need in order to actually achieve your idea, in order to make it happen, and how much money you think is actually realistic from your crowd. And it's important that you find that middle ground where there's a crossover. It kind of falls into both camps. The way that it works on Crowdfunder, you get to choose between all or nothing or flexible funding. Kind of does exactly what it says on the tin. If you choose all or nothing, you have to hit that target in order to get any of the money. If you don't hit it, no money gets taken from any of your backers. You're not charged anything, they're not charged anything, but you don't get any of the money that's been pledged. Flexible funding, or keep what you raise, works completely the opposite way around. So whatever is pledged, regardless of whether you hit your target or not, you get to keep it. So you set yourself that deadline. You say how many weeks you're going to have to raise it, and you've got to get to that target. Now, I would say for most people, they ask the question, why should I go for all or nothing, or why should I go for flexible? Why? What's the benefit? Why do people choose one or the other? Now, all or nothing for the vast majority of projects is the better option. It's so much stronger as a motivator, not only for your crowd, for your community, for the people that you're trying to get to support you, in saying, we've got to reach this target. We've got 10 days to get there. £100 remaining, whatever that might be. It's actually a really good motivator for you as a project owner and for your team as well, to make sure that you're firing on all cylinders and really kind of doing your best to get there. I would say that regardless of whether you're on all or nothing or flexible funding, you should be confident that your target is realistic. What we don't want to do is think, I don't think I can hit my target, let's go on flexible. No, what we should be saying is, I don't think I can hit my target, I need to grow my crowd. I need to maybe rethink my target. It's finding that balance. It's not we go on flexible because I don't think I can hit it, okay? Stretch targets, just a little note on the end there. So once you hit that initial target, it doesn't stop. It's not over. It's not when you reach 100%. What you can do, if you've got time remaining until your deadline, is you actually add a stretch target, so almost like a new target, an updated target, that you can then push forward for. Now, if you're on all or nothing, doesn't matter if you hit your stretch target or not, you still get the money. It's only that first target that you really have to get in order to hit the all or nothing. Stretch targets are just a really great way of keeping your crowd motivated and making it clear to everyone that, as I say, it's not over. There's still more to do. Something to bear in mind with target, just again a little side note, is that of course there are fees that will come out of the money that have been raised. If you go onto Crowdfunder website and type in fees in the search bar, you'll be able to find those. And of course, bear in mind any money that it's going to cost you to deliver on your rewards. So definitely do your sums and your calculations before pushing forward with a target. So next thing we're going to look at is writing your story. Now again, there's some really detailed, in-depth advice on how to present your story in our artists fundraising pack. A couple of really key things I'll just whip through now. Definitely want a really punchy, really strong introduction. We should, in about 3 sentences, cover who you are, what you're trying to do, and why that's important, why it's exciting, why it's unique. All of those different words that we might use for what makes this interesting. So really, really punchy right at the top. If you think about when people arrive on a website, of course, that's what they're doing with your crowdfunding project, is the more they have to scroll, the less likely it is that people are going to read it. We've really got to catch them right at the start and let them know that there's something interesting for them to see here. Really key, particularly for projects in the arts sphere, that we have a good visual texture on the page. So we're talking about images, we're talking about photographs, it might be sketches, it might be drawings, it might be models, it might even be storyboards, whatever that might be. Really to give people a flavour as to what it is that you're trying to do. A lot of very artistic projects tend to kind of go the whole hog actually, and they almost brand up their page by using different colours and graphics right the way through, which weave in and interlink with kind of their style as an artist. And that's a really great way of getting that across. Definitely use those formatting tools. Pull out subheadings. You don't want to have any more than 2 or 3 paragraphs under each heading. Subheadings are a great way of guiding people through and making it much, much easier for that page to be consumed. Bullet points are great. Pie charts are wonderful for budgets. Just want to make it as less about big blocks of text and more about nice little snappy snippets of information. Testimonials are a really good one to include. Particularly if you've got some great reviews on work that you've done previously, or other notable artists talking about why your work is exciting, why this project is exciting. Really helps to build your credibility, but it also is a fantastic way of adding other voices to the page. So it's not just like reading a narration, actually it's more like a crowd already talking about what you're doing, which is exactly what we're trying to do here. If you've got some really fantastic rewards, it's definitely worth having a section on your rewards in there, particularly if they're visual. If you're giving away things like prints, posters, t-shirts, actual physical objects, we always want to see at least a design of what it is that these people are actually pledging on. And there's some really fantastic examples if you look through the Crowdfunder site of people who have done that well. Bridport Museum is a really wonderful one. Another project which did it very well, which is actually live at the moment, is the Left Book Club. That one, again, really fantastic way of sort of showing all of the rewards that they've got on offer. So going forwards from there, we have, of course, the next bit, creating a video. So it's important to note that a video isn't mandatory. You don't have to do one. We find generally that projects who add videos tend to do better. But it doesn't mean that you need to if it's something which is really going to hold you back from making this happen. Keep it short and sweet. We're not looking for a Spielberg production. We don't need lasers. We don't need explosions or fireworks or car chases. Just get yourself in front of the camera and just tell people about what it is that you're trying to do, who you are, what your idea is, and why, again, it's exciting. It's all of those key points again. We want to make sure that the really, really important stuff is in the first 30 seconds. That's really the point whereby people would decide if they're going to keep watching or if they're going to switch off. Even more than that, those first 10 seconds should be great. Make sure that there's something happening in those first 10 seconds. Don't do a really long, slow intro, something like that. We really want to get to the point quickly. In terms of kind of scripting, I actually find that over-scripting can be actually making things a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. Best thing to do is just to write down those key points. What are the things that you need to make sure you say, and then just speak from the heart, just ad-lib. It often comes across a lot more natural, a lot more genuine. So unless you're very, very practiced, as an actor or someone who's very used to kind of, speaking from scripts, I would definitely stick to kind of just letting the camera roll and just going with it. Final part of the page is rewards. Okay, so this is the bit where we can really have a bit of fun. We can start to think about all the different things that those people we identified earlier when we were doing that network map, if you remember that, what are all the different things that they're going to be interested in? That's definitely the way to approach it with rewards. Some people, when they come into crowdfunding, they go, okay, what can I offer? I would say, instead of what can I offer, what do they want? What does my crowd want? And then figure out how you can offer it afterwards. So particularly for arts projects, events are really, really fantastic, whether that's an exhibition, whether that's a performance, it might be a studio session, it could be coming along to watch a recording, it could be a recital, it might be something, in the outdoors, it could be something in a local venue, it could even be something, in a pub. It doesn't need to be super proper and black tie event. It could be something very, very casual. It could even just be kind of a celebratory party, something that kind of celebrates the starting of the project, where you can get all of your nearest and dearest and kind of people that you know, to celebrate together, and you can put that on as a reward. Same sort of thing with tickets. Again, if you're putting on any performances, any shows, and you have tickets to give away, particularly if you can make them a bit exclusive, if it can be kind of, you know, first look or a preview, kind of, you can, you know, bill it as a VIP event. That's a really good one to use as rewards. Products themselves, if you're making music, or if you're doing a performance piece, can you actually give away a video recording, you know, as a reward? And you don't have to get them made up as a DVD. It can be just a digital download, or even just a link to a stream, even something like a live stream, actually. So if you can't necessarily give away seats to a performance, can you set up someone doing a live stream? And one of the rewards could be a link to that. This is a really good one, because it actually hopefully generates fans in what you're doing as well, in people looking at your work and enjoying it, and that of course will sort of boost your profile. Last two sort of go hand in hand in terms of sponsorship and thank yous. It sounds really basic, but actually it's something which we find a lot of people actually go for with crowdfunding projects. It's just different ways of having that acknowledgement. And that's what rewards are all about, is acknowledging their contribution with something that's worthwhile to them. It can be something that's of value, it can be something that's valuable. It doesn't have to be, you know, something, you know, a gold bar. It doesn't have to be something that's worth a particular amount of money. You know, kind of a link to a live stream is something that's, you know, of value to that person, if that's something that they're interested in. So the final step is running your project, of course. It's when we press the button and we go live. Of course, we've got to launch it. We want to get off to a great start. As we keep things rolling, we've got to make sure we keep our supporters up to date. And of course, the big one, share, share, share. So when it comes to launching, definitely have a look at the calendar. Now, I know it sounds obvious, but have a look at what else is going on. Be that in your own arena, be that in your own personal life, or actually in, you know, on a grander scale. I was working with a project earlier on this year when the results of the Brexit vote came out, and he just launched his project. And I remember him saying to me, Sally, God, I wish I'd looked at the calendar and realised that was today, because I'm not getting a whole lot of media attention anymore. So definitely worth thinking strategically about when you're going to launch that project. If you've got some events on, if you've got, you know, a talk coming up, any sort of workshops, something where you're going to be connecting with people, it's worth thinking about launching your project in line with that. So going back to Wash Club, who we were looking at earlier, the film project that funded earlier on this year, this is a little bit of a behind the scenes peek at what happened when they went live, where their pledges came from sort of day by day. Now, it's worth me mentioning at this point that you have access to all of this data and much more on your own project when you're live in the Crowdfunder dashboard. You can see everything from where your page views are coming from, the referral, the source. You can see which reward is making you the most money, what your conversion rate is, what kind of trajectory you're on towards your target. It's really useful, lots of good stuff in there. So if we look at how it went, this is actually pretty typical, pretty common for a lot of projects. Can you see there on that day one, they had a really fantastic first day. We always want to be with projects trying to hit 10% at least on that first day. Sounds quite punchy, and it is quite punchy. As long as we can get there in the first couple of days, we're not going to panic too much. If we aim for 10% in the first day, that's going to show people that we mean business and we're off in the right direction. Really good technique to do that is to actually write down a list of people you can directly get in touch with on day one. Figure out who those people are going to be, write that list, and then work back and say, okay, how am I going to get in touch with them? And however it is that you normally speak to them is probably the best way. So if you normally speak to them on WhatsApp, send them a WhatsApp message. If you normally text them. If you normally call, pick up the phone, and really just have those direct communications. Ideally, we want to have spoken to these people before launch day so that they know this call is coming. They're aware of what you're doing. Now, if we have a look through that graph, you can see it kind of slows down a little bit in kind of the end of the first week and the second week. There's a few little peaks. That's when they were putting out specific promotional material. They had kind of new things to talk about. Then you can see as they come into that third week and going into week 4, it really picks up again. Now this one's quite an exaggerated U-shape in that they had a really sort of strong final week. But for the vast majority of projects, this graph really is that U-shape. There's a lot at the start and a lot at the end. And that bit in the middle is the bit where you really have to make sure you've got things planned to try and keep it interesting and coax it along. There will naturally always be uplifts on some days and slower days. That's fine. There has to be lows in order for there to be highs. It's not a problem. We just want to make sure that we've mapped out all of our different channels of communication, everything that we have access to, and that we're making the most of them and obviously interchanging between them on every day. Now, there's loads more detail on sharing your project on across all the different channels, be that social media, email, out there in person in the real world. There's loads of stuff in that Crowdfunding for Artists pack. So definitely have a really good look through that and try and figure out for you, what are your key channels. There's so many things that are on offer now with things like Instagram. You can even do Facebook Live. You can even sort of do, again, live broadcasts just like I'm doing this evening. That it's really a case of figuring out what's going to be the best way to connect with my crowd. And again, use that network map. You know, it's going to be your absolute go-to guide for planning your project. Is always going back to who this crowd is, who are my backers. Okay, so just sort of finishing up now with some examples from Washflow in the kind of things that they were doing. If you'd like to actually check them out and see the kind of tweets and Facebook posts that they were putting out at the time, you can literally just search for Washflow. Their Twitter handle is @WashflowFilm, and then if you search Washflow on Facebook, you'll find them as well. Really good example of just kind of look through all the different things that they did to promote their project. So a couple more examples that I definitely recommend having a look at. If these are the kind of projects that you might be doing. We have Tumor Hazard by Karen Hobbs. She ran this project in August of this year. She was diagnosed with cervical cancer back in 2014 and has since been doing her best to kind of put a positive spin on it and actually raise some money as well for some great charities. So this year she was looking to take her performance to the Edinburgh Fringe, which is why she crowdfunded with us. Next up, we have a Fantastical Theatre project that ran a couple of years ago. Really interesting, quite a I don't want to call it a serious performance, but it was focusing on our ability to sort of trap and record time, I think is how they phrased it. Really interesting piece of exploration there. Final one to finish is a music project that worked with us in June of this year. A couple of sound engineers from Bristol wanted to put together an album with artists from all around Bristol, and obviously they raised, you know, a really fantastic nearly £7,000. But it goes to show with the breadth of these examples, you don't have to be raising tons and tons of money for crowdfunding to work for you. It can even just be, you know, a few £100s that you might need. And this is a great way of, again, expanding that audience and trying something new out. So I said earlier on that I would go back to talking about the extra funds that we have available for artists from Arts Council England. So the way that it works, the first thing you have to do is add your project. Really key. Once you've added your project to Crowdfunder, you head over to the artists page. You go again /artists. Click apply and fill out the application form on there. So that will automatically be linked up to your crowdfunding project. The kind of projects that we're looking for is individual artists in England who are raising between £4,000 and £40,000. The way that the fund will be applied, you have to raise the first 25% yourself. At that point, you become eligible. So only projects that have raised at least the first 25% are actually eligible to even be looked at for funding. Once you've done that, if you're eligible and you're approved for that funding, then you can actually receive, again, a 25% pledge. So if you're trying to raise 4,000, you can receive a pledge of £1,000. If you're trying to raise 40,000, of course, you can receive a pledge of £10,000, which is really a fantastic amount of money. It's really key to mention that you have to reach your target in order to get that money. This is only applicable to projects on all or nothing funding. You must be on all or nothing. Flexible funding projects are not eligible for this fund. The key things that we're looking for you to demonstrate in order to show us that this fund is the kind of thing that's right for you, we're looking to see evidence of artistic track record. So tell us about any key commissions, work, partners that you've done before, and you can do that in your application form. We're looking to find out how this project is going to help you develop as an artist. How's it going to help you improve your skills or do something new? That's really, really key to make sure you get that across. And we also want to know what is going to be that artistic output. What is it that you're actually producing? Is it a painting that's going to be hung on the wall? Is it a performance? What is it that you're actually trying to do? And that needs to be really, really clear in order for us to be able to review that application. So just again, that's sort of the way that the process works. Add your project, start crowdfunding, apply for those extra funds, and then hopefully together we can make it happen. So I'm hoping that you have found this useful. I'm just gonna come back into, here we go, so that you can see me again there. Okay, fantastic. So I'm hoping that everyone who's tuned in this evening has found that useful. If you do have any questions at all, the best way to get in touch with us is actually via Twitter. You can tweet to at Crowdfunder UK, or even better, come directly to me. I'm at Sammy Mauger, that's spelt SAMIMAUGER. That's where I am. And please do ask any questions that you have or any feedback on this session. Again, the place to go for further information on artists and for downloading that fundraising pack is crowdfunder.co.uk/artists. I hope you have enjoyed this evening, and I very much hope to see some of you live in crowdfunding with us